Right. Well, thank you for tuning in. This is day 3 of our 15 days of webinars. Thank you for tuning in. If you've tuned in, you should have an option there that you can ask questions along the way. We won't just keep stopping as a question comes in. We won't keep stopping, but we will try and get to many of those questions we can towards the end of our webinar today. So just for those that have first come into this 15 days of webinars are all different backgrounds of soccer and sport. We've had people from or a director from the community. Yesterday we had Jimmy Melia giving us his England and Liverpool and managerial career at Brighton. Today we have Patrick Gallagher, better known as Paddy Gallagher, a really good friend and family friend with him and his son Paul. They're over in Dallas Fort Worth, and they are part of the Odyssey program. So Paddy, how are you today?
I'm great, Andy. Thanks, appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you giving up some time so you can enlighten us on some of the topics we're going to talk about today. So just to start, Paddy, for those that don't know about you, why don't you give us an overview and an intro about yourself, where you come from, and how you ended up coming to the States?
Okay. Well, like all kids, I started playing in inner city of Dublin. No parks on the concrete. 5 aside, 7 aside, 10 aside, 20 aside, depending on the day and the time of the day. Came from the inner city of Dublin. My first experience of playing with teams was with the Belvedere Youth Club, which was a great boys club that was a multi-sports basketball, or not basketball. At that time, we didn't know basketball in Ireland, but the club was play table tennis, boxing, swimming, and you used to go and play against other clubs in the area. It was called the CYC League, Catholic Youth Council League. It's pretty good. It kept a lot of us occupied and out of trouble.
Good. So so playing there as a lad, what did you do from there to get to the States? What did you do throughout Ireland to be able to get to the States?
Well, I loved the game. I was playing at a lot of levels. I was asked to play for Shelbourne, which was one of the professional clubs when I was a youth. I played for the second team for got a few games on the second team when I was 17. From there, I went, and a couple of years later, I went to a local club called Talby United. It was a junior club. When I say junior, it's below professional level. And above schoolboy level, so it was a middle in between, and a lot of the friends there, we made a team up from kids in the local neighborhood, and we were pretty good because we had some great players there that could do things with a ball that you see some of the kids doing now. And from there, I went to play with Bohemians. They were an amateur club at the time, but they were playing in the League of Ireland. So I had a few runs out with the Bohemians at League of Ireland level, and didn't get asked to play professional. Went to Longford Town. I played professional with Longford Town for a couple of seasons. From then, my friends were saying, hey, you got to come back. We've got a great team. So I ended up going back to playing junior football for a good few years. And from there, there's a lad called Vincent Butler who was manager of the Republic of Ireland youth teams. He was one of the guys that started the Belvedere soccer part of the club, and he knew that I played for Bohemians and played at a decent level. So he asked me would I come and join the club and put something back into the club. That's how I got started coaching. Went back to the club that I played as a young kid, and done my first license in the prelim in Ireland. Went to England to do the prelim because I figured, well, if I'm going to learn the game, I want to go and play and be coached at the top level. Done my prelim license, then I went on after a couple of years, done my A license, which was called the senior license at that time, and Did pretty good. Came back, started coaching at Tolby United, very successful. Went on then, and Noel King from Shamrock Rovers, a professional club, asked me to become the reserve team coach. And I did that for a few years, maybe 2 years. From there, I went to Bray Wanderers, which played in the League of Ireland, reserve team coach. Pretty successful. I was pretty successful with both teams. And that was an enjoyable part of the game. I got my A license in Ireland. I got my USA when I come over to the States. Actually, my son Paul gave me a call. He had come over to the States and got married to a girl he met on holidays, and he started coaching here in the States. So he gave me a call because I was coming over doing camps for him, and he gave me a call one day and said, "Hey, Dad, if you're interested in coming over, one of the coaches has just left the club," and the club was Euless, from Euless. So I had a chat with the wife, and I says, "Come on, let's go, and we'll see what it's like." And of course, the wife wasn't very keen on the thoughts of moving to a strange country. And I said, "Look, if it doesn't work out, let's treat it as a holiday. We can always come back. I'll always get a job." So I left Ireland. I actually had an academy in Ireland in a college, Coláiste Ida, and I sent over roughly 70 kids to the States on soccer scholarships. And that was a pretty successful time in my career. But I ended up coming over to Ireland anyway, and had some fun. Joined the club. Had to do my USA licenses. I done the NSCAA, Advanced National, and the US Federation National B license. They wouldn't let me do my A license, so I had to do those licenses before I go on to my A, which I didn't do. I was very busy at the time trying to earn enough money to buy a house and settle down in Ireland. And that's basically where we're at now, Andrew. I'm still over here now with Odyssey, and I think I can say with my hand on my heart, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. It's a great country, the USA, but you have to work, right? You have to work, and that was fine. I was always a worker. I sold newspapers on the streets of Dublin, so working hard wasn't a problem to me.
Good. So yes, yes, and you've done a tremendous job over here with the kids that are coming through Odysseys with Odyssey Soccer Club. And in fact, you end up winning, I think, with the boys team, the D1 boys Classic League here in Dallas Fort Worth, which is quite a feat when you're not with one of the bigger clubs and the pick of the kids. So a great job there as well. So I think you also coach nationally the Women's Republic or the national women's team as well, and the juniors, right, Paddy?
I actually, yes, it was actually the first women's national team, and that was a challenge, but it was very enjoyable. Different part of the game, how to handle girls. They're not like young men. Became a junior national coach, and junior is like below the professional level. And we played. It was mostly against England and Scotland and Wales, so that was a very enjoyable part of my game because it challenged me as a coach, moving up a level, because the teams that from England, they were all from semi-pro teams. Some of them I think were professional players, and we did pretty well. So I was happy with that experience, to gain that experience before I come over to. My biggest regret is when I come over here is not trying to get into a professional club. But I was with my son trying to build a club, so, and I just have to say, if it's one regret I have, that's probably it, you know.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Well, that was a good background for anybody that's listening to this to see exactly who you are and where you come from. So So today's topic we're going to be looking into is introducing tactics and system of tactics to kids. Is a subject that often comes up to myself and probably you and most other coaches. When should we start teaching tactics and systems to kids, at what age? So so the first thing I'm going to ask you, Paddy, before we get into that tactics side, well, let's define what the technical abilities for kids are and at what certain ages you're expecting the technical proficiency to be. And why do they need to be technically proficient, right?
Yeah. At what age? It's funny. I was thinking. I was listening to Jimmy's webinar yesterday, and he was talking about playing with the likes of all the great English players. But the one that he mentioned, which comes from the club that I support all my life, is Duncan Edwards from Manchester United. He was 15 or 16 years of age when he played for the national team. Can you just imagine that, what it took? Now, apparently he was I'd never seen him play, but apparently he was a big colossus. He was a big kid. But obviously he had a lot of talent to play at that level. At what age did we do systems? I think I don't like talking about systems because I think any coach that has a team, you got to pick a system that suits the players that you have. Now, they could be different ages, they could be different sizes, right? Picking a system to play, obviously, playing a system includes both attacking and defending. And in the system, you analyze players to apply the technical and tactical ability to play against the team. So what the system is like, you line out your team that you think is the best, that you're going to get a result or you're going to win the game. You line them up in such a way, whether it's 4 at the back, 5 at the back, 5-3-2, 4-4-2, whatever system you have. But at the end of the day, and this is for any young coaches, systems are not worth the damn if you can't pass or control the ball. So that's the most important aspect of any coach's teaching ability is to be able to teach players of all ages, all shapes and sizes, to be able to control and move the ball around to get a result on the team.
So you're saying the core technical skills that you're looking to get to any kid of any age are going to be your passing, receiving, shooting, dribbling, and tackling, I guess, right? They'll be your 5 cores.
Yeah, I think I remember last Alan Wade was one of my. He was the national coach in England, and he was one of my mentors, and he was actually way before his time. I remember asking him, Alan, what would you think would be the most important skill to teach a player? The most important skill to teach a player, developing player. And he said, to be able to control the ball, your first touch. Because if you've got a good touch, it's not just about controlling the ball. If you've got a good touch, you can play the ball over different distances, heights, and short passing, long passing. So for me, one of the better skills, or the first skills to learn, I try and teach them, is to be able to control the ball. Because if you don't have the ball, you can't play. And obviously, then with the controlling the ball, passing and control comes into. You got to do something with the ball when you control it. So it's the core skills are controlling, passing, dribbling, shooting, and at a certain age, heading.
Right, and of course that these days is a whole subject in itself, is the heading. But so the core skills there that you've really highlighted towards the coaches would be, you're not necessarily looking at your juggling, and you're not looking at your beating your 1v1s. You've got to receive a ball, you'll be able to pass a ball, and you'll be able to dribble the ball competently and at speed and at game speed, right?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, we're playing with a ball. you've got to have a relationship with the ball. So the earlier parents in particular, the earlier parents get their kid with a ball, whether it's just running around, throwing the ball at them, getting them to judge different bounces and all that. The earlier you can do that, the better the kid will form a relationship with the ball. And I remember in my church a few months ago, one of our parishioners, she just had a baby, and she knew I coached. So I told her, I said, when he gets to about 6 months, I says, put him in his cot, or if you're bringing him out for a walk with your car, bring a ball and put it at the end of his feet, and let him just start with a ball exercising, you know. And she thought that was very funny, but I wasn't joking when I said it, you know, I meant it, you know. But it may sound a bit odd, but that's the way I was thinking, you know.
Okay, so now we've covered what you're expecting as a player to be competent. So now let's move into as a coach, how do you evaluate that the players are ready then to what age, or what do you think they need to evaluate in order for them to become tactics?
Well, I think when you get a group of kids in, straight away you're evaluating them. You know, you're looking and saying, okay, the first thing I look at is relationship with the ball. When he's running with the ball, is he chasing the ball, or is he keeping up the speed with the ball? If he's chasing the ball, he's kicking the ball too hard. So the evaluation, I think, as a coach should start when you get your team in, no matter what age they are. If they're only 4 years of age, or 10 years of age, or 6 years of age, or 16 years of age, you know, you got to have a look and see what their skills are like, what their touch is like on the ball. And from then, you know, you say, okay, he's fast, he's big and strong. We might put him at the back, or we might put him up top. That's the coach's decision in relation to how he sees his players. So evaluating is it's really a long term. But if you have your team, I mean, I had an 02 team that I thought was one of the better teams that I've ever coached. And I had them from 6 years of age, a lot of the kids from 6 years of age, and evaluating them all the time, so that every time I see an improvement, I'm raising the bar. So every time I'm raising the bar, the kids, I'm hoping, will understand and get better. And as I raise the bar, it'll be maybe raising the bar on a technical end, raising the bar on a tactical end. So as they're growing up, you're teaching them some tactics as well. So at a young age, I would say I would just focus on skills up to, say, about 7 or 8 years of age. After that, I think you're talking now about, like, position wise, you know, how to support and all that stuff, you know.
Okay, well, let's move into that then. So the US Federation has followed a lot of the other countries, especially in behind England and stuff like that, with the small sided games process. So we have the 4v4, the 7v7, 9v9, 11v11 currently as our models. So 7 and 8 would really tie into when an academy player, so over here being America, if you're listening from somewhere else, an academy player would be outside of your with a club, I guess, not with a city recreational league where, you know, scores don't really matter, right, and stuff like that. So so U7 and U8 are a 4v4. So would you turn around at that point and say to yourself, you know what, we've obviously worked on the skills, let's work on some of the tactical side, and how would you get that across to the kids, because of them being so young?
I think with the 4v4 can represent everything that happens in the game, right? So at that age, 4v4, I mean, even now the professionals play 4v4. They play small-sided games. Why do you do that? You get more touches, you get more running. 4v4, you can't hide in a 4v4, right? So you can teach the in a small way. So you can teach individual tactics, group tactics, and team tactics. So there's a learning stepping stone there, and you go from A to B to C to D.
Good. And then what would be your expectations at that age? Again, we're talking about some younger kids. So what would your emphasis be on? Obviously, you got the defensive side of the ball and the possession side, attacking side of the ball with no goalkeepers. But where would your where would your emphasis be on to begin with? Defensive, attacking, possession?
I think for me, the beauty of the game is about attacking. Now, don't get me wrong. Defending is seeing defending teams defend well, like the great AC Milan teams and that, you know. It's a skill in itself, and it's great. But looking at good attacking play, good dribbling skills, good shooting skills, I think attacking has to be the first priority. But you don't separate it, you know. You might put an emphasis more on attacking, right?
Mm-hmm. So why don't you?
And when they learn the attacking end of it, you know, you might implement some defending principles, like, you know, well, hey, if he's running with the ball and he's going to shoot, you got to get over and then apply some pressure and stop and try to win the ball, or try and win the ball so you can attack, you know. So the whole game is like, the whole game is based on attack and play, because we fight to get the ball, to stop them scoring, so we can go and attack and score. So the emphasis should be really on attack and play a lot more than defense.
And for any of those coaches, we're on 4v4 right now, for any of those coaches that are listening, what would you suggest? As you had your O2s when they were U6, so what would you suggest as a kind of a training plan that you could do some tactics with them on the defending and the attacking?
Well, I'll tell you what I do now, what I did, right? Well, we just say I've got 8 players. I had 16, I break them up into 2 4v4s, right? And I get between the two of them, and I just let them play. And I might throw in a couple of questions. You know, hey, you lost possession of the ball. Why did you do that? Well, my touch wasn't good or whatever. So I'm trying to elicit some answers. I'm not trying to tell him how to play. I'm trying to get him to think about the mistake that's made or what he should have done. So instead of doing that, he might come up. I might say, well, can you come up with a better way of keeping possession of the ball? You know, and then he might be looking at the ground, and I might say, well, get your head up and look around. Now, what do you see? So I'm eliciting some information from him. Now he's starting to be his own coach, because he's now telling me, hey, from what he's seeing. And I think this is a very important part of teaching kids, especially at a young age, getting them to recognize where the problem is and getting them to be able to solve the problem in their mind first, and then solve the problem on the field. From it, I don't know whether that's too technical or whether that makes sense or not.
Well, it makes sense to me, and I think I'll just recap it. You mentioned there, of course, that within the small side of games, why do you lose the ball? Well, my first touch. So again, we're going back to, that's why it's important to get that technical ability to a standard, because otherwise the tactics are just going to break down anyway. You can't keep a ball. Right. So yes, I think for the majority of us, and for me in particular, we certainly understand where you're coming from there. So let's move up. And of course, when you had your O2 team, you were straight full-sided, I believe. But let's move up to the 7v7. So now we're talking about 9 and 10-year-old kids. Where's our expectations at the 9 and 10 in regard to the tactical side of the game?
Well, at around that age now, we're starting small-sided games, so 7v7, 9v9. The emphasis is good. The emphasis is still, when you have the ball, you keep it. When you don't have it, you try and get it, right? That's the whole emphasis on the way I taught, right? Now, it's not just a matter of throwing in 7v7 and 9v9. The kids have got to be taught to be able to defend, as we said earlier, and they got to be able to know how to keep possession. So that's a one-on-one thing with the coach, closing them down, right? What angle, what distance, what speed, right? If it's a case that he's lost possession of the ball, if he hasn't closed them down at the correct angle, once you get that sorted out, then you're talking about, okay, we'll bring in a bit of cover, right? A bit of defensive support, and that has to be at the correct angle and distance. depending on the pressure that's put on the man on the player with the ball. You want to go on further from that?
So obviously from going up to the 77, the numbers have increased the field a little bit. So at that point, I guess the formations, you're applying a little bit more about your roles and responsibilities on the formation. Is again, we're talking about 9 and 10-year-old kids. So you're applying the principles of the game, but you've also got the whatever formation a coach would choose, depending on who they're playing, I guess, or what they're trying to do with their playing philosophy. That would have to then start coming in. Is 9 and 10, you know, what would be expected at the age of 9 and 10? And you create some very good teams from not a lot of players. So I think you would be able to give us a better insight into what a 9 and 10-year-old can and can't do if trained correctly.
Well, at that age, like 7 and 8, they're just starting, their bodies now are just starting to get coordinated a bit, you know. Their cognitive learning is there. They're able to understand a little bit more. But when they get to the next age, the 10 and 11, which they call the golden age of learning. That's
yeah.
By some people, it's called the golden age of learning. You'll see the motor skills and learning, and you'll see some improved ability at 11 and 12. The deliberate recall memory is a lot better now, right? So they can remember things, they can remember instructions, they can focus longer, they can stay on task longer. So we're now getting to a stage where they're starting to understand a little bit more about what you're looking for from them as a coach. So you're bringing in the tactical end. Okay, where if it's 7v7, you might play with 2-3-1, or you might play with 3-3-1, right? So all those players are in different positions, but all those players have got to be able to defend. And defending doesn't just start with a centre back. The defending starts as soon as the ball is lost, and that can be the centre forward, right? So from the centre forward, taking a defensive position, all the other players behind them have got to be able to take a supporting position in relation to the ball, where the ball is, the area of the field, and the number of players that's in your area. So we're talking about marking players at different distances and different angles.
Right.
That makes sense, Adam?
Yeah. So now you're at that 9 and 10, 7v7 age group. Yes, positions are obviously, you don't want them all traveling around in one area. So yes, you've got the positions, and you're saying that because they got better retention and better information retention throughout the season, you can at least get them to understand defending principles, or making sure that if you're losing the ball, you've got to win it higher up the field, and getting the numbers in behind, a good shape, good distance, and making sure you're not penetratable. So good. So if we're going to move into the golden age, the foundation phase.
Can I just say, Anthony, before we leave that, you know, the coaches have got to be patient in relation to how the kids they're learning, because they're all going to be different sizes. You're going to have more kids with more intelligence than others. You're going to have kids that are faster than others. So you've got to be a bit patient, and you got to know what your players need from you as a coach. So your assessment, as we were talking earlier on, assessing the ability of the players, and it's an ongoing thing, right? It's an ongoing thing.
Absolutely. So let's move on to that golden age of the foundation phase, the 11 and 12s. That's 9v9. So we're only 2 players away now from being a full 11v11 game. So at that point, what are we looking at as a coach, and the tactics side on that golden age, foundation age?
Well, I don't think it doesn't change, Anthony. It's just that you have more players than you had that when you were 6 or 7 and 8. You've just more players now. There's different positions. So now we're up to 11 and 12-year-olds. They're now playing full-sided games. You know, when I come over here, I couldn't believe that they were playing playing full-sided games at 11 and 12 years of age. Now, the select teams are doing that. I know the recreational have brought in at a certain age group, there has to be only a certain amount of players playing at the different levels. But the assessment of the ability, I'm just trying to think of the words. How do we get our 11 and 12-year-olds to play from a recreational point of view? How do we teach them, right? Well, first of all, we got to, again, getting back to the skills, they got to have skills, right? You got to have some sort of skills, and the skills they have, that will determine what position or where they play on the team, and that's the coach's decision, right? And
so if I was to,
sorry,
that's okay. So here in the States, of course, that's where we're at right now. So we have our recreational level soccer, and then we go into our academy. Now, our academy are 7 to 10-year-olds typically. They can be a little bit before and a little bit after, and then competitive is 11 and 12. But our elite players, the top level that's considered the top level of players and leagues, they can now start at U12 and U13 in the last couple of years. It may change going forward, which we've heard about. So, we're talking about asking kids at U12 and U13 to be at the top of the game and understanding as much as we possibly can, tactically proficient in technical side, and the coaches have got to be at a point, because they're traveling a lot. I think at U12 and 13 they stay local, but at the top of the game, we're asking them to be, it's about winning and losing at that point. So the tactics have got to be on point. So, we're talking, when is the earliest time, or when is the right time to introduce the type of tactics, the level of tactics, the complexity of the tactics. Yet then we talk about the foundation phase, which is 11 and 12, whereas in other countries they're not really worried about the winning and the lose column. And then we've got some particular leagues that will straight in U12 and U13, and they've got to be winning. So it's kind of a, we're trying to gradually develop there, and then boom, we're straight on that upward climb on what they got to do and what they got to play. So, what's your thoughts on that side of the game here in America?
Well, I think the problem over here is that we put too much emphasis on not too much emphasis, because the game is about winning. It's a game, so there has to be a winner and a loser. It's better to be than a loser. But how you go about being a winning team, do you play kickball? Do you play long ball? Because you don't want their defense to concede any goals. You want to play the game up as far as possible away from your own goal. That's okay. But if you just play, if you just keep playing long ball, you're just giving the ball away a lot of the times, right?
Yeah.
For me, I think I've always focused on being able to play a possession ball, because if you have the ball, that's another good way of defending. Because once you have possession of the ball, the other team can't score a goal. So I've always tried to approach the game from that point of view. So from that point of view, I always try to play the ball, the game, build it up from the back. And obviously then getting players forward in a forward position. Of course, I think it's easy playing out from the back when you're playing against two front players, or maybe just one front player, and you've got 4 players plus the goalkeeper. It's very easy to get it out. The key of the learning comes when you're in the final third of the game, when it's tight, when you got a lot of defenders and not a lot of space. That's the key area to development. And I think that's a good test of I think it's a great test of how good a coach you are, if you can get your team to be playing in the final third of the game when they've got everybody sitting back. I'd like to think I try to play that way a bit.
Okay, well, good. I do have before we go on to the next, moving on from it, I do have a question. It's coming in from a good friend of yours, your assistant coach down the years, Robbie Malloy. So he's asking, I think coaches in the big clubs recruit speed and strength and don't really worry about the talent, I guess, is what his question is there. So what do you say about that? About tactics, I'm sorry. I think coaches in the big clubs recruit speed and strength and don't worry about tactics. What would you say about that?
But speed and strength is a great asset for any coach to have his players have. In relation to the game, I think you're doing a disservice if you just rely on speed and strength. You're not teaching the kid anything. When he gets a bit older, and all the other, and I've seen it happening, especially with some of my kids, especially in the O2s that I had. There's 3 of them now playing DA, and 2 of them were pretty small kids when I started with them. They weren't as big or fast as some of the kids. So I think you'd be doing a disservice just to focus on their speed and strength. It's an asset you could use from a tactical point of view, right? Where if you've got a fast kid, you can play him in, trying to play in behind the defense, or you've got a fast kid and he's fast with the ball. You get him in a situation where it's one-on-one. You can get him in a tactical situation where we can set it up that he's one-on-one on the last defender, or one versus 2, depending on his ability on the last defender in the final third of the game. So that's where the tactical end of it comes. But from the point of view of developing that kid with the speed and the strength, I get back to the technical end of it. If you can't control the ball, no matter what your speed is, you're going to give it away. In fact, it reminds me of a kid that I had that came in, and man, he was like Chris Lightning, and running from right full position up to the halfway line. He was actually tremendous, but he couldn't keep the ball. The ball was overrunning the player because his first touch, and this was a player now that I'm not throwing any coach under the bus. I'm not going to say his name, but I got him in the last year of his. Actually, it was 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago when I got him. So it was a bit of a struggle to get him but I think I made a bit of an impression because I set some goals for him, and I taught him, and I showed him, hey, this is what you need to do: shorten your steps, soften your touch. If you do that with your speed, you're going to be a great player. So I gave him some goals, I gave him some exercises to do, and I set a time for it, and I said, I want you to be able to do this. So we were talking about the younger ages, developing the kids at a younger age. Well, here was a 16-year-old, 17-year-old coming in, and he couldn't keep possession of the ball. And his speed was he was a small, blocky kid, but his strength and his speed was tremendous. So you gotta look at the kid and don't just say, okay, we're going to play to him because he's going to win the game for us. You're selling the kid short. If you're a select coach and you're getting paid to teach the kid, well, you're getting paid. It's your job. You need to teach the kid. You need to teach the kid how to play the game and show him some skills. And obviously, the other part of it, the psychological part of it, and the fitness end of it, that all comes in. Lifestyle. How the kid develops at home. Does he eat the right food? Is he getting the right sleep? Psychologically, does he wilt under pressure? And these are all things that come in later in the game when they get a bit older. So I hope that answers the question. It's a long-winded way of trying to answer your question. I think
there's a lot of information. In fact, some of the information would lead me on to the next question that we had for you, which was, I think we all as coaches have been down this road. We got a team, and then over here every July we get to, there's opportunities for players to come and join the team. There might be some that leave the team. Now, I think it's easy sometimes for coaches and teams that lose those players. How long does it take for them to get back up to speed with the coach's philosophy, the team philosophy, the style of play, and the tactics? Because you're bringing in players and trying to get them to play catch up. So how would you implement, if you were telling a coach now, how would you implement sessions or a long-term development plan over, because of course the long-term here would have to be a year. If they re-sign, it can be longer, on getting that kid to be able to slot into your tactical thought process in your team. Well, that stumped you, isn't it?
It depends on the player, right? It depends on his intelligence. It depends on his genes. Is he fast? All that stuff, right? Now, how would I implement? Well, I'd have to assess the kid and see what he needs, and then again, and I've done this before. I've taken a couple of kids and done extra practices with them. When my kids were growing up, when I say my kids, my teams, especially when they're young, I used to set goals for them. And the goal setting was in relation to what the kid needed. How do I slot the kid into a team? Well, obviously he's got to have skills if he's going to play for me, right? How would I slot him in? Well, I do an individual session of the kid playing in the position I want him to play in, and I would focus on maybe 2, possibly 3 at the most, but maybe 2 things that I want him to improve. If it's a full back, I want to improve his angle of approach to a winger when the winger has the ball, his angle and his speed of approach. Okay, so what are we talking about in that situation? Well, first of all, we're talking about his starting position. If you're starting off 20 yards and the ball is close, he probably won't be able to make up enough ground to put enough pressure to prevent the ball being played forward. So it depends on what the kid has and what a kid I'm looking at. But if you get what I'm saying, I analyze, I look at what he needs, I put him in his position, and even though he might not know it, right, I put him in a position where I'm going to get the ball. If he's the defender, I'm going to get a ball to a winger or whatever position the defender plays in, and maybe a centre back. I'm going to get the ball to that player that's playing against him, and from them, I can look at his decision making, and then I'll maybe freeze the play, and I'll ask him the question, and it's not, no, you do this or you do that. I might say, you didn't get there. Why is that? So I'm asking him the reason why he didn't close up position. And he might say, well, I was too slow. And I might say, well, I don't think you were that slow, you know. What about your distance? Do you think that was good? And he might look behind him and say, well, I might be a bit far. So it's a question and answer thing. Now, at the end of the day, right, you got to say, no, this is it. If he gets a bit, maybe some kids don't like to be questioning and that. If he gets a bit contrary, you might say, well, look, this is the way it is. You're too far off. You're not getting there close enough. And the reason is because of your distance, right? Now, from that then, depending on where he is, we work on his angle, right? Does he send him inside or does he send him down the line? Then we're talking about other people around him. And other people around him will take that cue off the position he takes. If he approaches him straight on, he's probably sending him down the line, right? If you send them down the line, we've got to make sure that there's somebody going to be one of the centre backs. If he's a full back, one of the centre backs can slide over a bit and cover, or it may be even the midfielder on the centre midfielder on that side, giving them help to cover. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. So do you find any difficulties when you can look at your O2s, you can look at other teams. The O2 team was a very good team. You've had 95s before that, they were pretty good. Have you found that as they're progressing through the 14th and the 15th and 16th, and you're getting players from other teams coming in or want to change over to you, how long do you feel it's taken until they effectively understand the style of play and the tactics that you're employing, that you get the best out of them in a game? Again, I know we're talking about how intelligence and genes and stuff like that and physical and technical, right. But how long, again, I think most coaches would relate to this, would be, you've done your tryouts, you've seen a kid, he looks good, technically he looks good, that's why you want to take him on. He might not be there understanding your game plan. How long and what would you implement to try and get that kid up to speed, and how long would you expect in your mind for that kid to finally kind of understand what you're trying to get out of them, and for that team to be tactically aware. Sorry.
Right. Well, given that the kid is he's got some tools, he's a bit skillful, and he works hard. I think maybe I would expect him to understand that after 1 or 2, 3 sessions, depending on how much information. But I would expect to have an immediate impact on the first session. But that's me as a coach, and that obviously that's sticking my chest out. But that's what I'm saying. It really depends on the coach as well, right? Has the coach played at a decent level? Does he know the game, right? If you haven't played, it's difficult to know the game, right? Now, I know we can all say, hey, well, this fella's coaching this team and he never played the game. These are highly intelligent coaches that are able to suss out things and read about the game, and they become very good students of the game. For me, if I'm with a coach, I'd like him, if he's played at a decent level, I know he should understand how the game is played, first of all, maybe not how it's coached, right? Right, so it's up to the coach. It's really down to the coach. His experience at playing, his experience at coaching. And that's why I would always, any kid that's coming into in fact, kids that are leaving our club, I always encourage them, even before they leave, maybe a year or 2 earlier, I'd say to them, go and do a coaching course. It'll open up your head. It'll open up your brains. Because when I went over, I thought I was a pretty decent player in Ireland. I had a decent left foot. My left foot was better than Christy Brown, so that's saying something. I don't even know who Christy Brown is. But Daniel Day-Lewis got an Oscar playing him. Right? So you need to look that up. But I thought I had a pretty decent on how to play the game. And I went over to England, and Howard Wilkinson, who was he ended up becoming a national coach. I was in his group, and man, it was like him putting his hand into my head and taking all the cobwebs out of it. The game just opened up. It was a new game for me. And man, in fact, a year after that, I done my prelim. I went to do my A license. I actually got an offer to go to England. And at that time, I was 28 years of age, around 28 years of age. And I got an offer to go to England to I think it was a first or a second, I think it was Gunthorpe. It's a long time ago. But I told you, I says, hey, I had 2 kids at the time and I had a good job back home. I was working in the electrical company, and I says, hey, 28 years of age, I thought I was over the hill and I was coming into me prime. That's one of the regrets. But I hope that answers the question, Anthony. You know, the coaches there, you really need to do, and when you do a course, go and do the next one. Get a bit of experience, coach them. The better players are a good team. Go and do the next course. Go and get your next license. Go and get your license. Educate yourself. If you're getting paid for it, you need to educate yourself, because that's what you're getting paid for, to do your job.
I completely agree with that. So yeah, you're touching on the coaching side there, which I like. None of this, I don't know if I'm trying to ask it as a question as opposed to a statement, but my statement would be none of this is possible unless if a coach can actually understand the game and be able to pass it on to a player. It's all very well looking up on the internet, seeing a good drill and throwing it out there and not understanding the context or the complexity of what it is supposed to be. Simplest drills can be the easiest to try and get your tactics across. So let's just cover what does a coach need to really understand effectively, or maybe what do they need to know in order to effectively be able to put tactics across to their team, to their players?
Let me just say another thing, Anthony. You know, some people would call me a hard ass, excuse the expression, you know, but and I think sometimes I go over the top a bit, but it's because of my passion for the game. But it's the other part of that is that all players are not the same. So what I would say to you, you know, you might take it in the right way. whatever way I direct it. But if Robbie is there and I say the same thing to Robbie with the same tone, with the same emphasis, he might resent that. You know, he might think you're picking on. So there's that part of the game that coaches need to learn as well. And I'm still learning. You'll never stop learning as a coach. But to go back to the things of what the coaches need, Anthony, you got to need to know and know them well and understand them, the principles of the game, from an attacking point of view and from a defending point of view. And the principles, the number one principle is, well, you can't attack if you don't have possession. So attacking principle, possession. All right? If you're down at the back, you can't make a run from, say, the centre half position all the way up to score a goal or to shoot a goal. I know there's one or two have the ability to do that, but I think it's a risky thing to do. So you need support, right? When you have support, you got possession of the ball. Now the next thing we're trying to do is, can we penetrate? Can we get in behind the defense with and without the ball? By passing, shooting, or dribbling. That's what we need to do. And obviously the whole thing is to shoot, to get to a situation where you can shoot and score a goal. Mobility. Mobility to be able to create space by being mobile. We just say that the right side midfielder, centre midfielder has the ball, right? We got a winger and we got a fullback. We've got an attacking fullback, okay? So now we're looking for mobility from these two players, the winger and the fullback. Okay, we just, for answer, just give a tactical as well as a technical, and the whole thing comes into this mobility, that we just say the winger makes a run inside. Well, the likelihood is that that fullback is going to go with him. If he doesn't, that winger is free to receive the ball. If he does go with him, now he's created space for the fullback to do an overlap down the line. And now, obviously, then that's mobility. He's running. And then the technical end of it comes in. Can we deliver the right pass at the right speed in front of the player, or do we play it to his feet? Well, if the defender's gone in, we play it into space in behind. So the other thing then is from the mobility is creating width. If our team shape is narrow, well, you bring defenders in, so that makes it very tight to get through the defense to score a goal. Right, so creating width, getting wide, touchline wide, spaces in between and behind defenders is an important factor. And the last one is improvisation. When we got situations where it's packed, do we have the ability to improvise and do the moves that all the great players do and all the kids love to practice and see do? Do you have that ability to improvise to get in behind the defense and score? And the opposite to that obviously is, well, defending. First principle, and this I don't think this is in the book, in the coaching book. The first principle for me is defending, or it's not. For defending principle is possession. If you've got good possession of the ball, the other team can't hurt you. So that could be looked at as a good defensive principle. If I got possession of the ball, can we get support? If the attacker has support, the pressure from the I just slipped a bit. From the penetration, attacking penetration, we have to have pressure in order to stop the ball going forward, in behind or between us. If we have pressure and the other team has got support, we need a bit of depth and cover. From that mobility, right, we need a bit of balance from width. So the balance from the width is usually comes where the furthest player from the ball is in a situation where he can cover his centre, say it's the fullback, in a situation where he can cover his centre back and at the same time not give enough of space and we're talking about starting position in the last sequence that we did, is not giving him enough of space, or covering your centre back, balancing out the defensive shape, so that we can stop the ball going in behind us and keep the ball and the play in front of us. So basically, you know, back to it, you got to have a good understanding of the principles of play. And when you start, if you get, I think Alan Wade had a book out years ago, and man, it was a great book, and it's still the Bible to me, is the principles of the game. I think it's called Alan Wade. Fantastic. Fantastic book for any young coach to pick up. Okay, Andy?
Yeah, so we talked about the principles. Let me throw out a couple of things that I would, my personal opinion, I think a coach would need to know. The principles, I mean, that's the basic. I don't care if you're playing whatever sport, there's principles in all sports. And I think if you don't understand them and you can't apply them correctly, then I think you're doing disservice to your kids anyway. But playing style. I think a coach needs to understand what type of playing style they want so they can apply the tactics that they require for their team to play the particular style that he wants them or she wants them to play. And then also having your own coaching philosophy in order on how the best way to get those tactics across to your team the most effective way, and also so that they understand and they will do it for you. So I brought up a couple of points on top of the principles of play, the moments of the game, depending what you want to call it. What do you think about the philosophy and the coaching philosophy and the style of play, the playing style? What do you think a coach, you know, because I think for me, I see some coaches out there and I couldn't really tell you what their style is, what they're trying to do. They're just, you know, get the ball in front of the goal, I guess, is kind of I guess that's their playing style. But do you see what I'm saying? What would you add to that, to the coach on top of the principles? Or the moments of the game, if you understand.
I think the players like to play with the ball. Right? So if you're playing a kickball game or playing the long ball from a tactical point of view and bypassing the midfielders, and I'm just going from a personal point of view, you know, that I don't think I would be enjoying the game too much. But from a tactical point of view, I can see the reason why you can do it. But my personal preference is to build out from the back. When you're building out from the back, you're getting all the team involved in the play, from the goalkeeper. And the fact that over the last few years now, goalkeepers that they used to call them, I remember them being called sweepers now, right? They're actually sweeping in behind. Now, obviously, there's been a few blunders. The problem, there've been a few blunders with some of the goalkeepers, even the professionals, but it doesn't take away from the principle that, hey, if we're keeping the ball, we play what they call ticky-tacky. If we're keeping the ball, it's more enjoyable to play with the ball than it is without it. Right? Now, there's other people might say, well, the ticky-tacky, it's a bit boring in that, you know. Remember, we keep the ball for a reason, and the reason is to get in behind the fence as soon as you possibly can without becoming a kickball team, right? So, from a point of view of the tactical end of it, yeah, it's a better way of playing the game. For me, it is, and anyway, I think for most coaches, unless you're into the winning strategy and your team is not a good team that doesn't have the skills, but then we get back to the start. Well, you need to go and teach them some skills. So there's no kind of, well, let's go do there's a pathway to go from being a player to being a skillful player. Remember, doing moves and that, it looks great. And you're doing drills and you're doing moves. It's only a technique. If you don't have a player, or if you're not doing it in a game situation, that can be 1v1, 2v2, 3, whatever. That's when it becomes a skill. So the kids need to learn that it's not a skill when you're doing in between cones. It's a skill when you're coming up against somebody and you're doing a move and you're getting past them. So that was just something that I thought I should throw in at
So I will add, I'm going to add in my little bit as a coach. I've been coaching now for what seems like most of my life. I feel as a coach, to do a good job and to be able to put tactics to the kids, I feel you need to have a good understanding yourself as a coach of the way you want it played. If you don't have an understanding of how you want it played, how do you get that across to your players? And if you don't have a plan in place, if you haven't done the research, if you haven't looked and understood how you want it to be played and what makes up how to be there played, how do you expect a kid to do it? And then of course, on my coaching, I think everybody should have a coaching philosophy of how they get that across, and what's their how can they get it across? What's going to make those players play for them? What's going to keep the players engaged? Because as you know and I know, there's sometimes got to be some of those sessions they're not the most fun sessions, but they have to be done because it's the bare principles of the game. And then of course, I am an absolute, you've got to know the principles of the game. You have to know the principles of the game in and out so you can teach it in a good way and an understandable way to whatever kid and age group and, development stage that they're in. So that would be, as a coach for myself and what I'll do for my teams, as long as I've got an idea and I have a long-term idea, so I know exactly how the little goals and the little steps are to get that tactics across, your teams become successful. And I think that can be proven between, I've known you a long time now, Paddy, and I've played up against your OOs when you had them, became 99s, whatever the OOs, and you would have 11 or 12 players and playing 11v11 and still batter people because they understood the principles down to a T, and they understood what they had to do and the tactics of the game. They understood how you wanted them to play. And I think if a coach is out there and they don't understand or they don't know themselves how they want the game played, then how can you get across the tactics? How can you get across the style and your DNA of what you want for your team? The DNA is an important aspect of it.
Let me, Ryan, the great tool to learn. You got to have a patience. You got to have a bit of imagination, and it's called shadow play. Mm-hmm. And it's a great way of teaching kids from a tactical point of view of, and we used to call it combination play back home when I was playing. You're combining with somebody else to get the ball into a situation where you can score. Shadow play, there's no opposition. Your success is guaranteed if you know how to do it as a player. You get great feedback from the players. There's so many variations of any sort of movement from the back. So it's a great way of teaching the game, whether it be in a forward side, right? Or whether it be an 11 side or a 9v9, a 9 side. Now you can do it with cones. Mark counts, put counts down, or you can get even teams, and you can say to the team, the opposing team, you can say, okay, I want you to get in when the ball moves, I want you to move to defend the ball. I'm talking from an attacking point of view. I want you to move to defend the ball, right? But don't tackle, right? So from that point of view, he moves. So saying to the player in possession, okay, he's moved, he's wherever he is, you paint the picture. Now you ask them, okay, what do you think you should do in this situation? And he might say, well, I can't play it forward. So I then say, well, what way can you play it? And he say, play it back. I say, okay, play it back. So he turns, he plays it back. And say, what can you do? And then it was shifting. So you can keep it going and going and going. And even from a defending point of view, you can do the same. You can give the attacking team the ball, and you can say to the defenders, okay, when the ball is in a certain position, when the ball is near you, I want you to move. There's your shape, whether it be 3-5-2, whatever it is, 4-3-1, whatever it is. There's your initial shape. The ball is here. Nearest man to the ball goes. Second nearest man covers. Third, and you get your balance and your cover and your balance sorted out. So I don't know whether there's any books on it. I learned that from Howard Wilkinson.
Yeah, that's.
And
I mean, if we're talking about,
personally, I found it to be very successful. It may not suit other people, but you got to have imagination that when the player gets the ball and you're asking somebody to move, you got to know where he has to move and when he has to move. Not when the ball is controlled, but when the ball is traveling. All that all that technical information. So now you're getting the kids to play with their brains, not just their feet.
completely agree. Completely agree. Well, Paddy, we've gone over our hour. I was going to come up with another question. I mean, I don't want to take you away from your family. I see Lucy coming in and out of the room there, but you know, we could do another one if you wish. Maybe you know, who influencing your coaching style or influencing you how to become a coach. Maybe that would be another topic. But you know, you talked about Howard Wilkerson a little bit there, and is he the main person that you think influenced your coaching once you, and of course you only met him briefly, I guess, in the coaching course, but who, if you've got some time, Paddy, on you, who influenced your coaching? Who influenced you to become the coach that you are?
Howard Wilkinson.
Okay.
I would have to say, yeah, Howard Wilkinson. He was the one. Now, when we done our license, you know, it wasn't kind of a couple of hours here and a couple of hours there. It was 2 weeks, 11v11 every day, or 2 solid weeks, 14 days. It was freaking brilliant, it was brilliant. And I played against a couple of, you know, they were first division players. It was the first division at that time, like Colin Suggan, Newcastle, Jeff Nolte, Everton. You know, some great players in that day, you know, and I was playing with them, you know, it was freaking great. And the challenges there, you know, the game is, I mean, the game is such a wonderful thing to be able to play and to play it no matter what level. It's a great game to play. In fact, Alan Wade used to say it's not what was this? No, it was Bill Shankly. One of the reporters interviewing Bill Shankly, he said, Bill, he says, you know, he says, you're very tough on the players. He said, you know, it's only a game, you know, and Billy says, it's not only a game, it's the only game, you know. I thought that was great, you know.
Well, his name came up in the last couple of days.
You know, I love talking about the game, so I would be happy to do it. But if you don't get anybody coming in, it's just me and you talking. We do that over a pint or a cup of tea, I should say. I don't drink.
Well, I do believe.
Yeah, let me know if you want to do it again.
We can do that. I know with you and Jimmy, there's a lot of information in your head, and I'd love to get that out of you. So, one thing for sure, I want to say thank you very much. We did go over an hour, and an hour of your time is important to you and your wife. So I do appreciate that. I think for anybody that's watching this, they can see the infectious passion for the game just in the way Paddy expresses it. And again, I've known Paddy a long time. I hate to say how long now, but and also his boy Paul. And there's no one better than to have a sit down and a chit chat about coaching in the game. So Paddy, thank you very much. If there is a last couple of questions, you've got about 1 minute to give them to us. Otherwise, we're going to stop there.
I'll try and make it short if it is.
It's okay. No problem. It doesn't look like there's anything coming in. So at this point, Paddy, thank you very, very much. We'll talk again and we'll discuss maybe bring you in on our 3rd week of webinars, or even after that. It doesn't have to stop with 15 days of webinars, right? So if you've got anything you'd like to talk about.
If anybody's in that sees the thing and they want to talk more, hey, you get my contacts on the website, odysseysoccer.com.
Yeah, and I'll supply them with the links as well. All right, Paddy, we appreciate it.
Andy, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a great day.
Right, bye-bye.
Stay safe. Wear your mask.
Yes, I'll wear my mask.